Hello and welcome to Military Mantra. In this interview, we have today a former Navy SEAL operator, Remi Adeleke. He is also an author, a filmmaker, and an actor. And in this interview, we'll try to understand his journey of joining the Navy SEAL, life within the Special Forces, and various life lessons that he has learned from his battlefield. So thank you, Remi, for coming on this session and welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Remi, if you could tell us, how was your journey before joining the military? And, what was your motivation back then to join the Navy SEALs?
Yeah, my journey was pretty pretty chaotic, to say the least. I was born in Nigeria through some circumstances with the Nigerian government. My father died, and my mom and I moved with my brother to the United States. I grew up in the Bronx, New York City, and got involved in a lot of bad stuff, selling drugs, running scams, doing anything I could to make money. I ended up getting involved in a deal with a drug dealer that went bad. I sold him some products that were supposed to last for a certain amount of time, only lasted for a fraction of that time. And essentially my life was threatened. But the good thing about that was a huge wake-up call for me. That's when I decided, you know what, I can't live this life anymore. If I do, I'm gonna end up dead or in prison. So I made the drug dealer back his money, and then I decided I'm walking away from this illegal life. And I did. And for 6 months, I just sat in my apartment, my mom's apartment, and just tried to think of what I was going to do. I didn't want to go to college. My brother was in college at the time. I didn't want to go to college. And I just kept on thinking. And then finally, through divine intervention, I felt this presence, this voice telling me, you need to join the military. And that was totally foreign to who I was, because I hated the U.S. government. I hated the police, and I associated anybody in a uniform as the police. I didn't like authority. I like my clothes back, my hat's backwards and my clothes baggy. I still wear my hat backwards. You can't do that in the military. And I didn't want to be in it. But the more I looked around my situation, I said, what else am I going to do with my life? My life has amounted to pretty much nothing. So what else am I going to do? And I might as well try it out. So that's what kind of began my journey. Now, the reason why I chose, back up for a second. So I went to the recruiter's office. First, I went to the Marine Corps recruiter's office, and there was nobody in there. So I walked down the hall to the Navy recruiter's office, because I had heard about Navy SEALs through a film called The Rock. That was my first time I was exposed to Navy SEALs. And so that's when I figured, all right, I'm gonna join the Navy and be a SEAL. But I was totally unqualified, didn't have the academic scores. I was skinny. I was just totally out of shape. And then I almost couldn't get into the Navy because I had a criminal record, which I didn't know I had. I had 2 warrants out for my arrest. And the recruiter, God bless her heart, she would die 2 years later of an autoimmune disease. But my recruiter, she took me to both judges, advocated on my behalf, asked both judges to clear my record. Both judges did, and I just had to pay court fines and court fees. And then, that's kind of how I got into the Navy. So it was really, like I said, in my opening, it was a chaotic path into the Navy. But it was a path that was necessary, and it made me appreciate my time in the Navy more, because, again, the Navy gave me a second chance at life. Like, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. I wouldn't have my family. I wouldn't, have turned my life around if it wasn't for the Navy. So that was everything leading up to me joining.
Got it. So Remi, I was reading upon you, your dad was from Nigeria, from the royal family. So you went from there, then you migrated to US. So did the hardship that you faced as a childhood, so did that help you eventually become, much more stronger emotionally?
Absolutely. I have half siblings who are older than me, and 15, 20 years older than me. And they had, because my dad was a chief, which is royalty in the Yoruba tribe, and he was very wealthy. They lived an easier life, a way easier life than I did. And so fast forward to, me going to the Bronx, it was really hard. I had it's a place where you have to fight to survive. And so I had to learn early on that you can't quit. You got to keep pushing. And then my mother, God bless my mom, was a woman of perseverance. She would work multiple jobs to provide for my brother and I. There were nights when she didn't have enough food to feed herself. She had just enough food to feed my brother and I, so she wouldn't eat, and so seeing that perseverance every day, her not quitting, not giving up, life being hard, her being a single mom, like that just kind of rubbed off on me. And then being in the environment that I was in, which was really hard and dangerous, that it hardened me in a good way. So by the time I got into the Navy, it was just like, it was like a cakewalk, Navy boot camp. But then when I got into SEAL training, it wasn't exponentially easier, but because of how hard my life had been, I was used to a hard life. So SEAL training wasn't exponentially easier, but it was easier in the sense that my mind had already been fortified. And, SEAL training is all mental. Physically, every person that shows up to SEAL training physically has what it takes, because you have to go through extensive, background, medical, and fitness tests. So once you pass those tests, you essentially have told the Navy that you could physically make it through SEAL training. The question then becomes, do you have what it takes mentally? And my mind had been mentally fortified because of what I had gone through growing up in the Bronx, fighting, getting beat up, getting robbed, all of that stuff. My mind had been kind of fortified. And so when I got to SEAL training, again, it wasn't exponentially easy, but I was like, oh, I could take this beating, I could take this abuse, I could take being called names. It's happened to me my whole life. So yeah.
Got it. So Remi, if you could also explain to us, how was the journey of becoming a Navy SEAL? Because I understand the first time that you attempted, you were actually a non-swimmer.
Yeah. So when I first went to SEAL training, I had just learned, in order to get into SEAL training, you got to pass a swim test, which I barely passed. And, but I didn't know that you had to know how to swim with fins. And so when I got to SEAL training, I had to train with fins, and we would have to do a 2-mile time ocean swim once a week. And I failed that miserably. Instead of swimming 85 minutes, I was swimming 120 minutes, which was like ridiculously long. And that was hard on my body, not because of the exertion, but mainly because of the cold, because the Pacific Ocean in California is freezing cold all year round. And so, when you're meant to be in the water for 85 minutes, but you're in the water for 120 minutes, then hypothermia sets in. And by the end of every swim, I was either borderline hypothermic or I had hypothermia, and so the swimming was the hardest part of the training for me, the ocean swims. And after I made it through Hell Week, with one of my classes, the instructors decided, we're not going to let you continue on a trainer right now because we see that you have what it takes up here. We just need to teach you how to swim. So after I made it through Hell Week, they put me into a swim program, as we call it, brown shirt rollback, but they really worked with me on my swimming. And then once I got it down and I passed my first swim, then I started with another class after they finished Hell Week. So I didn't have to go through Hell Week again. I got to pick up, and then I went into dive phase. And so, swimming was a challenge for me. But, I tell people all the time, I was actually having this conversation with my wife about an hour ago. Okay. All of us have deficiencies in life. None of us are perfect. And on your journey towards your dream, you will have some type of deficiency that can hold you back. And you have to make one or two decisions. Either you throw your hands up and you say, you know what, I have this deficiency, which means maybe this dream isn't meant for me, or I'm gonna do the extra hard work in order to overcome my deficiency so that I can achieve my dream. And that's essentially what I had to do. I just had to do the extra hard work in order to overcome the swimming, my lack of swimming, my inability to swim. I had to really work on that in order to get in and get through.
Got it. So, Remi, if you could also speak about your experience in the Hell Week, and how did you actually overcome that?
Yeah. So, Hell Week is extremely. probably the toughest week in training. 6 days, starts on Sunday, ends on Friday. You get 2 hours of sleep on Wednesday, 2 hours of sleep on Thursday, and they keep you wet and cold and wet the entire time. It's just brutal, man. It's nonstop brutality. And that's where we lose the most guys are, it's during Hell Week. And so, yeah, I kind of, it was hard, but I somewhat enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because I was every day, every minute that passed, I felt, and guys were quitting around me. It just empowered me more because it's like, here's this guy who's taller than me, stronger than me, a better swimmer than me, and he quit, and I'm still here. So it was like, the cool thing about it was that I had a constant visual of success and failure. And when I saw people failing and quitting, it empowered me because it kind of gave me the motivation to keep going on. Essentially said to me, you were better. You outlasted that man. And you outlasted another man. You outlasted another man. You outlasted another man. So it really helped boost my confidence. So, but that won't take away from my lowest core temperature during, ever my entire life was during Hell Week, dropped down to 88.7 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. Now, 97.1 degrees Fahrenheit is the normal body temperature. 88.7, that's extreme hypothermia. People die from that. So that was my lowest temperature in my entire life was during Hell Week. I had patches of flesh on my thighs that were gone, skin and flesh from chafing, extremely painful. It was the coldest I ever been in my entire life. It was bad. It was. I almost died the first time I went through Hell Week. Actually, I ended up in the ICU for 4 days. So it's a brutal week.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So Remi, as you spoke about, the mental capabilities, that the more stronger you are mentally, easier it would become. So how can somebody, develop those skills so that they become mentally strong, according to you?
There's a few ways. One is you have to put yourself in challenging situations. So I get this question a lot from kids. They're like, how can I get more mentally tough? And I tell them, well, it doesn't always have to be something physical that you do. And I tell them, I said, it could be, what if you have a paper, if your teacher gives you a paper and and that teacher tells you your paper is done in 2 weeks, how about you do it in 2 days? How about you challenge yourself? It's essentially all it is putting yourself in challenging situations, where you're always growing, you're always pushing. And as you do that, then, and when you find yourself in a challenging situation that's out of your control, it's easier to handle it because you've already not tortured, but you've already kind of challenged yourself mentally in your control, right? So the more you do that, it's like working out, it's like fitness, the more you do push-ups, the more push-ups you're going to be able to do, right? And so that's one way. Another thing is positive self-talk. So often we as human beings, it's just interwoven in our DNA to have negative self-talk. We say, I'm going to be late. I'm not going to be good enough. This is not going to be a good podcast. My wife is going to be upset with me. This person is going to leave me. My kids aren't good today. The list goes on and on. I'm just paraphrasing, but the list goes on and on of the negative self-talk that we say to ourselves throughout the day. And so it's essentially, how do you get mentally tough? It's by combating the negative with the positive. It's, positive affirmations. I am good enough. I will win. This will be a good day. You're not saying positive lies. You're saying positive truths, right? And by doing that, that's another way to help you grow mentally and be mentally stronger. And then, along those lines, as soon as a negative thought comes in your mind, it's attacking it right away. It's not waiting and allowing it to linger or considering it. It's attacking it right away. So that way it doesn't grow. Because once a negative thought gets, it's like a little seed. Once it gets into your head, it and you self-water it, it just grows and grows and grows. And before you know it, you've talked yourself out of whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And so many people, they talk themselves out of success all the time. They talk themselves out of relationships. They talk, just think about a guy, you're in India right now, right?
Yes.
Do you have clubs like clubs in India, like discos where people go to meet girls and stuff like that, in India? You have that in India?
Yes,
So
we
Matt, so, what if a guy, what do guys do when they see a girl that they're attracted to at a club often? They want to talk to her, but then they talk themselves out of it. They say, oh, she's probably going to say no, or she's probably not going to like me, or she's probably going to embarrass me in front of my friends. These are all of the things they talk themselves out of going to talk to that girl, right? So it's like, it's mental toughness is all about, at the end of the day, it's all about controlling the mind. Because we as human beings, we allow, along with negative self-talk, we allow our bodies to dictate to our minds what it will or will not do, when it should be the other way around. Our minds need to dictate to our bodies and what it will and will not do. And again, the way you can learn to do that and be more intentional about doing that is challenging yourself, putting yourself in challenging situations. And that's why, fitness is often a great tool to use. Like if you're going to go on a run, like, hey, this is a good example. On treadmills, you have treadmills. I'm sure you have a treadmill out there, right? So when you run outside, when you just run outside, and as you get tired, your body just naturally slows down because it can. When you're running on a treadmill and you have it on like 9.5 miles per hour or whatever, and you're tired, you can't slow down unless you physically push the button to decrease the speed of the treadmill. You know what you do? You get on the treadmill, you put it on a challenging speed, and then you hold it and you watch how your body starts saying, stop, slow down. And then you use your mind to say, no, I'm gonna keep going another step. Treadmill is a great tool to help build mental toughness, because you can't slow down until you physically push the button. And you can't physically push the button unless your mind tells you to push the button. So that's a great way to build mental strength and mental fortitude. Again, putting yourself in challenging situations. You could use something physical like the treadmill. You could use something, like a deadline for work. There's a lot of different things you can use. I advocate for the treadmill because that's what really helped me with my mental, growing my mental toughness. And that's something that a lot of people could do, easily do.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Remi, if you could also tell us, when you were a young Special Force operator, so how was your first combat experience and various learnings from that?
Yeah, my first, it was everything I trained to do, right? So in training, what we do is we have a saying, train to, fight how you train how you fight, right? So essentially it's like, and our training is way harder sometimes than actually being in a physical shootout, right? Because I remember when we would go through training, we'd have our instructors, the SEAL instructors who were instructing our SEAL platoon, we would have them kill half the platoon. Hey, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead. And not only do you have to continue to firefight, but you got to carry that platoon out, your guys out. Right. So, and it's 120 degrees outside. So it's not fun. And so my first experience in combat was I just did what I was trained to do. It wasn't like a shock. It was just like, trust your training. That's another saying we have in our community. I just trusted my training. And I've gotten the best training in the world. I had faith in the training that I was given. And I just applied what I was taught. And it worked. And it worked. I didn't get killed. None of the guys on my team got killed. We almost got killed, but because we trusted our training, and then I took that with me the rest of my career, obviously was, the training works. Trust it. You saw that it works because in your first combat situation, when you were shot at and people trying to kill you when you were in a firefight, you trusted that training and you applied the principles. So you see it works. Now continue to do it. And that can apply to so many other aspects of life. When you get good training, education, in certain things, you got to trust your training. And sometimes your training is not in an education system. Sometimes it's just the things that you've done that has worked. And it can be so easy to fall out of doing what has worked, especially when you're uncomfortable. especially when you're fearful and it's so easy for you to just run or do something that's out of the norm, instead of just do what you were trying to do.
Got it. So Remi, if you could also describe it for us, as you evolved as a special forces operator, what was your mindset when you actually went into combat? What used to go through your mind?
I mean, what was going through my mind was just, again, it's simple. I'm trying to find a different answer, but just do what you were trying to do. Get the job done. Don't let your teammates down. Like, don't do something or not do something that's going to lead to the death or serious injury of your teammate. Like, it's just that. And all that comes from my training, So when I was going to, it's like, it's almost like you're on autopilot because you do stuff so much that it's like muscle memory, and so it all comes back to training, as an operator, it's just like, what worked, what didn't work, learning from the mistakes that you made in training, like applying those lessons on the battlefield, that may not be the answer you're looking for, but that's just a straightforward answer,
Got it, Remi. So Remi, if you could also tell us, because you have been into multiple combats as a Navy SEAL operator, so any 3 life lessons that you have learned from the battlefield, which you still cherish, what would they be?
Lessons?
Yes, lessons from the battlefield.
I already touched on trust your trainer, so I won't touch on that again. I mean, there's a lot, so it's just hard for me to pinpoint one, but let me think of a lesson. At the end of the day, it comes back to team. For me, like, that's the biggest lesson that I learned that I apply today is that it's all about team. It's all about, everybody knowing their role and operating in their role and trusting your teammates, trusting your trainer, but also trusting your teammates, right? So when you're in a situation, like, you're not gonna, I was a medic, but I was also a human guy. I wasn't expected to be able to do everything. I wasn't a sniper, I wasn't a breacher, but I had to be able to trust my breacher. I had to be able to trust my sniper. I had to be able to trust my OIC, right? So there's a saying, the ultimate weapon is team. That's the saying. So the new Modern Warfare game is using that as their slogan for this new Modern Warfare video game. That's because that comes from that's a Special Forces saying. The team is the ultimate weapon. And there are no Johnny Rambos. There are no, like in the movies, you have this one guy that's running around doing it. None of that exists. It's all about the team. And it's all about knowing your role and operating within your role so that the team as a whole will be effective, and trusting that your teammate is going to knows his role and he's going to be successful in doing his role. It's all team. And that was the biggest lesson I learned going into combat, is that, you can't do it on your own. You need to be, when you don't know something or you're feeling weak, you need to be willing to speak up and say, hey, I need a hand here. Or I need, like, I remember going on a deployment where it was going to be a handful of us, about 8 of us, and we were going to be the only guys in this particular country. Our closest QRF was going to be on another continent. And we all, like, trained within our specialties to a T, because I knew that if somebody got shot, right, and it was like it was a potentially fatal wound, like, nobody was going to keep that teammate alive. Nobody was going to, like, it was on me to keep me and my other medic to keep that teammate alive. We weren't going to be able to depend on a doctor flying in or a doctor driving in, because so we had to know our roles and operate in those roles, and we had to trust that each other was going to operate in their role. And that's the biggest lesson I've learned. And again, I apply it today in business, in entertainment. Like, I have a team. I have my agent, I have my publicist, I have my lawyer, I have Brad, who you met, who works with me. I have my team. So I got to trust that they're going to, do their job, and they got to trust that I'm going to do my job. And we all have to do our jobs in order for the team as a whole to be effective. Rising tide, there's a saying that rising tides raise all ships. So as the tide rises, not one ship is going to be raised, but also if one person does something great, that helps the entire team together, right? Yeah. And so I apply even in my family, I have my wife, I have my nanny. We have we have teachers private teachers that come teach our kids. Like my kids, even them, like at our house, like at dinner time, like they all have different things they have to do. They got, like, one person has to set the table, one person has to, wipe the table down, one person has to get the mats, right? And we're trying to instill that lesson into our kids. Is that it's about team. Everybody has to put in effort. Everyone has to do their job. Nobody can't slack. So that's the biggest lesson I learned on the battlefield. And that's the lesson that I take with me today.
Makes sense. So Remi, you spoke about, importance of team. If you could also, highlight, how do you look at leadership, and how did your experience in the military help you develop those leadership skills?
Yeah. So leadership is, for me, a leader is a servant at the end of the day. Like a good leader is a good servant. A good leader is aware that he's not there to be served. He's there to serve, right? There's a saying that I kind of came up with that I learned in the military, and it's every great leader will never make you do something that they have not done or that they are not willing to do, right? So if you're a great leader, if I'm a great leader, I'm not going to make you do something as my subordinate or as my follower that I have not done or that I would never in a million years be willing to do. Everything that I tell my subordinates, my followers, my teammates to do, it has to be because I've done it or I'm willing to do it. And they have to know. And it can't be a thing where I can say, like I say to Brad, hey, go climb that mountain, right? And he's like, yeah, and I say, yeah, I'm willing to do it when I'm really not. It's an integrity piece to this whole thing as well, right? So that's why I'm blessed with the in my past, to have grown up had a hard life, to have gone through hard relationships, to have been in the military, to have a family, to have gone to college, got my master's degree, went to acting school before, while trying to act. I've done a lot of things that have been hard to get to where I'm at, and has taken time. None of what has happened to me has happened overnight. It all has taken time. Yeah. And so if a follower comes along or somebody comes along and works for me, and I'm tasking them to do something that's hard, it's because I've done it or I'm willing to do it. But for sure, I've most likely done it, right? And that's my biggest thing with leaders. It's like if you can lead with the mindset of being a servant leader, where people are not here to serve you. Your position is to serve those below you. And, that second thing, not making people do stuff that, because you'll get leaders sometimes that it's their job to do something, but they'll pass it off to a follower because they don't want to do it. It'll be like, you just do it. And it's like, there's no integrity in that. There's no service in that, There's no real connection to your people by doing that. You lose, it destroys your self-esteem. It destroys the morale of the team. Another thing, on leadership that I learned in the military, specifically in the SEAL teams, was you have to care about those you lead. You have to take a genuine interest in them. You can't see them as just a stepping stone to get to the next rank or to make $1 million. You have to look at them as a genuine person. You have to take a genuine interest in them. And you have to be willing to say, you have to get to know them. Hey, how's your mom? How's your dad? How's your family members? What can I do? How are you feeling today? Like, you have to take a genuine interest in them, because when a subordinate or follower knows that their leader cares about them, doesn't just see them as a stepping stone, then that follower will run through walls for that leader. Like, and I've experienced it myself, where I've had leaders in the military, outside of the SEAL teams primarily, where I could tell that they didn't care about me. They were rude to me, treating me like garbage. They didn't care about me. had no interest in me. All I was a stepping stone so they can get to the next rank. Yeah, I did my job. I still did my job because I had a job I had to do. But I just did my job. I just met the standard. Versus when I got into the SEAL teams and I had leaders that really cared and showed a genuine interest in me. Not only did I do my job, but I wanted to go above and beyond for that leader. I wanted to go above and beyond because I saw that that leader cared about me. Because that leader cared about me, I wanted to show my leader that I cared about him, and that I want that leader to shine even more. I want that leader to be able to go to his bosses and his bosses saying, "You and your men are doing a great job." Like, I wanted to go above and beyond because this guy showed genuine interest in me. So those are my three things when it comes to leadership.
Yeah, that makes sense. Remi, I have one more question. So since you've operated in the special forces, so you would have also, got a chance to even exercise or operate with the other special forces from the other countries as well. So how do you look at those interactions with them, and how do you rate them? How well are they?
Yeah, honestly, I never got a chance to operate with other special forces overseas.
Okay.
I guess with my other countries' special forces. I didn't get a chance to operate with other, with like SAS or SBS or GROM or any of those guys overseas. I did in training. So I have like in training work with like the Korean Rocks, which are the Korean SEALs. And it was, I think, a guy from Poland in my training. There was a guy from India in my training.
Okay.
He got sent. There's a few guys from Egypt who I did training with. So yeah.
Nice.
But the best guys, man, were the Korean Rocks, man. Those guys are hardcore dudes, man. Like, those were, yeah. Because they go through our SEAL training, the same SEAL training in Korea, but Korea's winters are like in the negatives, man. So they're still getting after it though. So yeah, those are some tough nuggets, man.
Got it. So Remi, if you could also speak about, the airborne training that you have undergone and any memories that you have from that when you jumped out of an aircraft.
Yeah. So I've done static line, I've done free fall, halo, hey-ho. I love skydiving. I still skydive on my own. I live not too far from a skydive center, and I still skydive today. For fun. I love jumping, man. I love jumping.
Got it. So if you could describe, your first experience when you jumped off an aircraft, how did that feel like for you?
It was a bit nerve-wracking, that's for sure. I was nervous because I never jumped out of a plane before. And, despite having grown up around tall buildings and living in tall buildings, I still had, like most people, a fear of heights. But, I had to conquer my fear, because there's no way I was going to get my trident if I didn't jump out the plane. So there was some nerves there. But after you do it the first time, after that, it's like, it's normal. I mean, it's just like once you conquer and once you see you're not going to die, because at the end of the day, that's where all fear comes from. Or you could tie every person's fear to death. They fear spiders because they don't want to get bitten and die. They fear snakes because they don't want to get bitten and die. They fear heights because they don't want to fall off and die. They fear water because they don't want to drown. Like, you could probably tie, they fear the dark because they don't want something to come on and get them. You could tie almost every fear to death. Anytime somebody's fearful of something, it's because in some way, whether big or small, they feel like they're going to die from it, right? Mm-hmm. And so, once you conquer that fear, once I jumped out of that plane and I was still alive, laying on the ground, I was still alive, and it's just like, oh, I'm not dead. I wasn't going to die. I just had to trust my training, like I spoke about before. I just had to trust the training that I was given and apply the training that I was given. And then everything is all good. And I did that. And that's what essentially, that's what helped me to overcome my fear and eventually get through free fall and static line jump school.
Got it. So Remi, if you could also speak about, the most challenging experience that you have, faced during your tenure in the service, what would that be? And how did you overcome that challenging experience?
The hardest experience for me in the military in general is, and there's no way to ever overcome it, in my opinion, is losing friends. I've had a lot of SEAL brothers. I mean, the wall behind me, that I don't know if you can see that picture I'm pointing to right there.
Yes.
That plaque right there. That's
yes.
all the guys. That's a few guys I've worked with who have been killed in operations, and that's the challenge, man. It's losing your brothers because you'll never get them back, and it's hard, time can heal wounds at times, but sometimes it doesn't, so I don't think that's something you could ever get over. I mean, I just had a Marine I served with commit suicide about 3 weeks ago. It was like every few months, somebody, whether in SEAL teams or Marine that I served with, commit suicide. So, it's something I still live with. It's something, still a challenge, getting over that,
Yes, makes sense. So, Remi, if you could also tell us, you have been in the SEAL team. So after that, you transitioned into, an actor, a filmmaker, and an author. How did that happen for you?
Yeah, I got out in January 2016, and then I didn't quite know what I was going to do. I had some ideas of what I was going to do. I was getting my master's in organizational strategy, and I figured I would go into business consulting. Okay. And then and a few months later, I got a phone call to work on Transformers. And that was my first 4 year into the entertainment business. And I enjoyed it. I've always loved storytelling. Ever since I was a kid, I loved movies, but I always loved the idea of telling a story. And so I did some consulting on films and TV shows and commercials, and then started acting. And then that acting turned into writing, and then writing turned into directing. And now I'm a writer director, and there's no other job I want to do in this world than be a writer director. So I love it. I love telling stories. I directed my first film. Short film is a 32-minute short film on human trafficking. I just finished writing the feature version of that film, and interestingly, the opening of the film takes place in India. Okay. I did a lot of research on India. Because that's how I open up the film, and then I have the scene at the end back in India with his family in India, and yeah, man, I love filmmaking, man. I love creating a story from the beginning, writing that story, creating previs, concept art, and then directing. I love telling stories. There's no other thing that kind of fires me up than writing and directing stories.
Yeah, makes sense. So Remi, my final question to you would be, because I've seen a lot of your photos with the weapon. Yeah. So what was your favorite weapon when you went into combat?
I was an M. I carried an M4, AR-15, AR-15. A lot of people know it's an AR-15 M4 okay. With an EOTech, a short CQBR barrel, which is a shorty. Had a suppressor on it, all kitted out with a Ford grip on it, and yeah, man, that was my thing, man. That was my thing. I was a medic, so I couldn't carry the heavy gun, because I was a medic, I was a corpsman, but that was my favorite weapon.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Remi, for your time on this session. I hope a lot of my viewers will get an understanding of how life of a Navy SEAL looks like, and various lives that you have shared from your battlefield. A lot of them will learn from that. So thanks a lot, Remi, for your time on this session.
No, thank you, and thank you to your followers, and I hope everyone enjoys it. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
God bless. All right, you too.